Okay, so before we begin, Alan and Spring, would you like to just give a quick introduction to what school you're from or what your program is, your incoming year, and maybe a fun fact about yourself?
Sure. Spring, do you want to go first or I can
You can go first.
Okay, cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Alan, and I am starting third year in about maybe 2 or so weeks at the University of Waterloo for computer science with co-op. What else was I supposed to introduce? A fun fact about myself. Fun fact about myself, I've been a pilot since I was 16 years old through the Air Cadet program.
Hi, my name is Spring. I'm going into my first year of engineering at McMaster with a plan of pursuing engineering physics and management with a minor in entrepreneurship, which is why I actually chose McMaster. A fun fact about me, I am a kickboxer and I do jujitsu. Also, as a side note, I applied and got accepted to the other major engineering schools as well. So if any of you guys want to know my opinions on choosing Mac or choosing the other schools, I can elaborate on that later.
Great, thank you all for the introduction. So we have quite a few attendees here. If you have any questions, feel free to just unmute or type them in the chat. All right, okay. In the meantime, since you guys both did co-op, do you want to sort of elaborate on the co-op process in your respective schools and how you sort of, the application process for finding a co-op job?
So at McMaster, I'm going into my first year, so I haven't gone through the co-op process yet. But from what I understand as of right now, in first year, you take a kind of co-op type, it's kind of like careers and civics, where you take kind of like a course on like co-op basic stuff. And then at Mac, it's basically a 1-year internship. It's unlike Waterloo, where it's kind of like broken up into 4-month chunks. But yeah, that's so far what I know of with McMaster, and the jobs are posted through a platform called Oscar. I haven't used that yet because I haven't gone on my co-op year, but yeah.
Cool. Yeah, at Waterloo. So since I'm entering my third year, I've actually just finished up my second co-op term. The way it works at Waterloo is that we have an internal platform similar to McMaster's Oscar. If I'm remembering correctly from that Spring mentioned. We have, it's called Waterloo Works, and it will be available to students on co-op 4 months or the beginning of the term before you're scheduled to be working. And that's basically the beginning of your hiring cycle. And what you'll do is you'll create a student profile, which includes a resume, and your student transcripts will be automatically included because it is a tool from the University of Waterloo. And yeah, you can just filter on all the jobs that Waterloo Works has. And what's really nice about Waterloo Works is that when you see a job posting that you want to apply for, if they don't have any additional requirements such as a cover letter or yeah, I think it's typically just a cover letter, you can just click apply and it'll automatically submit your resume as well as your transcript and basically your applicant profile to the recruiters. So you don't have to be filling out the job form for every single application. I know that when you're outside of the Waterloo Works platform, which a lot of upper years do, because there's just more opportunities outside of Waterloo Works, each application you have to fill out, all your personal information, you have to fill out your resume information, as well as, I know in the States, you have a bunch of, do you have any disabilities that you'd like to release? Are you a veteran? What's your ethnicity? What gender are you? So the application process is very streamlined with Waterloo Works. But however, it is only available for co-op students. So if you do show up to Waterloo and you're in the regular program with no co-op, unfortunately, you do not have that available to you. And yeah, I guess a little bit of background for me. I've just finished my second co-op term. I returned to the same company that I was at for my first co-op term. The first co-op term, I was doing QA, quality assurance, at a company called Genesis. It's a pretty big company. I think there's over 5,000 people worldwide. There's offices in every time zone. So it's pretty interesting to get to see people from all over the world, especially the other interns. And this term I was a software development intern with the AI speech recognition connector team. English is hard. But yeah, it's been a great opportunity, and I've already started applying for my next term, which is going to be in winter.
Yep, that's great. We have a question here from Erica, who asks, what is the student culture like in your respective fields?
Okay, I can go first. McMaster, generally engineering, the program, it's one of like, I'd say one of like the less, the kids are less competitive with each other from what I gather, which is partially why I chose McMaster. It's just the vibes are better, in my personal opinion. Like there's engineering welcome week, which is like a huge thing, and like red suits, and like I grew up in Hamilton, so I grew up near McMaster and attended a lot of McMaster engineering events specifically. Funnily enough, without planning on pursuing engineering, especially at McMaster, McMaster was not my top choice until November. But basically, I think it's pretty healthy. Like the professors that I've talked to so far, I'm currently working under a professor within engineering physics on her research team. But overall, I'd say all the professors are really helpful. They're really nice. There's a couple, of course, like all teachers everywhere. The students that I've talked to are all like really helpful. And like, yeah, it's a nice balance, I'd say. Like kids are not non-competitive. It's just like healthy, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, student culture at Waterloo. What you hear about stereotypes is, not completely wrong. I think STEM kids are stereotypically, a little bit nerdy, less social, and I think the Waterloo, I guess, academic life is not very conducive to very social, a very social atmosphere. I think, most people who come into math, CS, engineering, the course load is a lot. So most people will be, in their dorms or in the library studying most of the time. And when they're on a study term, they're also going to be applying for co-op at the same time. So like I mentioned earlier, when you're in your hiring cycle 4 months before your co-op term, you're actually on your study term. So you have your assignments, your midterms, your finals to balance as you're doing your applications and your interviews and your coding challenges if you're in CS. So it's a very heavy workload. So usually people will form their own groups in their classes because there's not much time to be going out. And after first year, I think the first 2 terms, everybody in CS and math will be studying together. However, after the second study term, so after the summer of first year, people will be in different sequences for co-op. So I know for me, I did 3 study terms in a row, and then I'm going to be doing alternating co-op and study 4 terms until I graduate. And then it's the same thing for the people in the other sequence. So some of the people that you meet in first year, you just won't see again on campus until you graduate for the last term. Because when you're on study term, they'll be on co-op, and when you're on co-op, they'll be on study term. So it's a little bit hard to have that integrity of a friend group. So there are some design teams and student organizations like Hack the North. I know what was mentioned in the main room. There's Women in CS. There's also Tech Plus. There's a lot of very inclusive groups that are really nice, but there's not too many clubs that are very much passion or hobby oriented. I think everybody's very academic and career focused. So that's where most of the effort is. And I think that's where you'll find the most community. But if you're someone who's very shy, I think it's very hard you need to put yourself out there. What you put in is what you get out in terms of a social atmosphere. I know a lot of people who are very quiet, they just kind of stay in the rooms. I feel like I'm a very outgoing person, so it's been all right for me.
Yep. Do we have any questions from the panelists? Feel free to unmute yourself, or rather from the attendees.
I guess I can just also mention a little background about me in terms of what I applied to for university. Throughout all of high school, I actually wanted to go into pre-med and go into med school. So I applied for all the medical programs. I also applied to the States. I didn't get in anywhere in the States. And as well as I applied to a couple of business programs. Unfortunately, I did IB in high school, so I didn't have physics to apply for engineering. So we can defer engineering questions to Spring.
I can also elaborate on my process of applying. So my marks were not that bad, but were not great. Like they were like low 90s, like 92-ish. So in terms of like engineering majors, it's a little bit on the weaker side. Originally, I actually wanted to go into marine mammalogy as a child until like grade 9, and then high school biology was way too boring, and I just completely lost interest. And then I jumped onto the physics bandwagon. So then I kind of wanted to do business actually while I was studying a little bit more into physics. And I was considering perhaps either going into business or like a physics research position, particularly particle physics. And then grade 12 came and I was like, oh no, what do I do? But then I kind of realized, oh wait, I actually really like mechanical engineering and engineering in general, electrical engineering. I was captain of our robotics team, and my mom was a civil engineer. She hated her job, which made me not want to go into engineering. But I ended up kind of figuring out that what I actually want to go into is like entrepreneurship plus business. So after that, in like grade 10, grade 11, grade 10, grade 11 was when I was like, maybe I want to go into engineering, maybe business. I decided on going into Western for engineering Ivy because, you know, if I wanted to go into business, but it's not super stable, necessarily as engineering. So I had engineering as the backup, and then grade 12 came and I looked into engineering physics at McMaster. And kind of realized that was the program that I wanted to go into because it combined my love for physics, especially particle physics and nuclear physics, because they do have a nuclear reactor and they have a lot of professors in that experimental field and connections there. So I can get a lot of research if I do want to go down that path. I also do like engineering and engineering physics at McMaster. It's different at every school because it's not one of like the main four, I think it was. And so at McMaster, it's basically electrical engineering. You can make your program so that it's electrical engineering plus basically a more advanced physics, which was what I wanted to go into. So long story short, basically, I was kind of undecided, so I ended up choosing engineering physics at McMaster. Also, the way co-op worked at Waterloo, I ended up rejecting mechatronics because I need people to be around me for an extended period of time to actually gain friends. And U of T and Sci, the dropout rate is really high, and my friends who went into it, a couple of them ended up regretting it because of just like how stressful U of T can be. So that's why I ended up choosing Mac. Basically, the choices were Waterloo, U of T, Mac, and Western. Western ended up not choosing because their engineering program didn't really appeal to me as much by grade 12. Sorry, I'm talking way too long.
No, it's great to have some background. And speaking of sort of like the stress, how do you handle the workload is a question from Erica.
So personally, I've always been very busy, like ever since I was a kid. Like my mom and my dad like put me in all of the programs. So I was like running from place to activity. So I was kind of like used to constantly being under that stress. I'm also a chronic procrastinator and perfectionist, ADHD brain. So which means that I end up I've always basically pushed everything up to the deadline and then panicked and then done it all at once. So I've kind of always been used to the stress, but then grade 11 was a little bit different in that the material is a little bit different and my studying habits weren't working. So in terms of transitioning into like the older years of high school and preparing for university, I would say that type of handling, that type of stress, I mostly just like figuring out how I work best. For example, like because I have ADHD, I tend to push things to the end. If in my mind I set the deadline like a week or two before for like a 2-week, for like a 3-week or like a month project, then actually get something started the day that the project is assigned, that helps me balance everything out. I generally also keep like a list on my phone of like the tasks that I have ongoing and the tasks that I have to do, which really helped me out as like, because I did end up leading 5 of the major clubs at my school in grade 11. So that got really hectic. So that plus schoolwork, it helps me kind of like manage it, if that makes sense. But yeah, the leading 5 groups was completely accidental. I wasn't supposed to, but the other leaders kind of dropped out. So I was there to lead.
Awesome. Yeah. I think Spring has a lot of really good points. I think one of the key takeaways that I think is really important is sometimes it's just a matter of trial and error, because everybody works differently, like Spring mentioned, and it's all about figuring out how your own systems work and what system is best for you, whether you're a night owl or an early riser. And I think the best way is just trial by fire. I know engineering is very tough. CS is, I'd say CS is all right, but it depends person to person. Like I suck at math, but I'm a lot better at programming. So you'll find difficulties in different areas. And I think one of the best pieces of general advice is to find a good group of study buddies, because I think you learn a lot better when you're bouncing ideas off of each other. And as well as, taking notes when you're going to lectures. I think it's, when it's online, all the lectures are live streamed or recorded, at least recorded, I'd imagine. You can go back to those recordings, but when we do go back in person, the lectures aren't recorded. So if you miss a lecture, you miss the notes and you have to find it from other people. So it's really good. I mean, also study buddies it's a good way to make friends as well. In high school, I also kind of tested my limits as well. I was in grade 12 and in grade 11, I was a part of a lot of extracurriculars. I guess a little bit of context for me, in grade 12, I went to Bayview Secondary. I was the student council president. I was the one of 2 student trustees for York Region, and as well as I was the cadet commander for my air cadet squadron. So it was very busy. I remember, I think Thursdays were my worst days, where I'd be up at 7 and I wouldn't finish my work until 6 in the morning, and then have 2 hours of sleep and then go to school the next day feeling like a zombie. Obviously, I don't think that was very healthy. So don't push your limits too hard. I think it's not very sustainable. I definitely burnt out. So it's it's good to find your limits, but don't operate at the red line for a very long time. It's not healthy. But yeah, I think also when you have, misery loves company. So when you're suffering with friends, you guys there's a nice bond there that gets formed.
Yep. It seems like you're both involved in like a lot of extracurriculars in high school. Do you feel that your extracurriculars sort of helped your application process, or like helped your sort of work and how you your work ethics during university?
Oh, absolutely. I haven't gone to university yet, but I would say in the application process, just this is like not engineering, but it's med sci. But 2 people from my school applied to Mac Health Sci, right? One person was everyone thought he was going to get in. He had he was really smart, had really high marks, a little bit egotistical, the classic doctor. The other person, she was like a school favorite. She got basically all the school leadership positions, and she had a lot of extracurriculars and leadership roles, and she knew how to market herself really well. And so I'd say, and she was the one that ended up actually surprising everyone and being the one from our school that got into Mac Health Sci. Well, one of the people that got into Mac Health Sci. So I would say that kind of says it all. A lot of universities right now do really care about extracurriculars. Of course, it's all about balance. So if your marks are like dipping really low, you might want to consider dropping an extracurricular or two. But it's all about like gaining that kind of interpersonal experience, learning how to function in like a non academic setting, perhaps, like per se, like being like a well-rounded human being, in short, and having the skill set to enter the workforce and not be like the pain in the butt person that no one likes, because that's who universities want to market their students for, right? Because like they want the students that are gonna get the job promotions, get in the good graces of the companies. But yeah, I would say it's not just about extracurriculars though, it's also about learning how to market yourself. Because if you can have the best extracurriculars in the world, you can be an Olympian, but the people don't know, like the universities, they don't know. It's what you present yourself in your essays, and like learning how to be a good essay writer, learning how to be concise in your essays, which, you know, having a teacher or like a mentor look over your essays, or like an up-year student give you their essays, is really helpful with that.
Again, Spring has a ton of great points. I think it's because she's a lot closer to the application process than I am. I feel like I'm a bit of a boomer now. To Spring's point about Mac Health Sci, like I mentioned, I wanted to go into pre-med, and Mac Health Sci was also my top choice. I would say Mac Health Sci, from the upper years in Mac Health Sci that I've talked to, it's 100% a crapshoot, in the sense that once you have above a 90, it all depends on your essays, and it's a bit of a black box. Nobody really knows what the check marks are, if any. From what I hear from people who have been a part of the application process, because they have fourth year Mac Health Sci students review those applications, it's more of a vibe check. So it's really hard to figure out what they're looking for. And for anecdotal stories from my school, Bayview, we typically send a lot of people, I think maybe just under 10, maybe 8 or 9, maybe 10, maybe over 10 people to Mac Health Sci. So it's a lot of people considering the number of seats that there are. But some of the people who are, like Spring mentioned, who, would be a doctor, like, if they just like, if you fast forward 5 years, like you can see them in med school or already working, or probably med school because of how long the path is. But there's this one girl in my class who got a full ride to Caltech and UC Berkeley, but she didn't get into Mac Health Sci. There's another girl who got into UPenn Wharton, and she didn't get into Mac Health Sci. A lot of the people that got in were, I guess, more surprising. I think, like, it's not the people that are top of the class most of the time. It's the people who are very smart, they're very intelligent, but they don't really, they're not the people that you think of first glance. No offense to them whatsoever. I think they're incredible people as well, but that's just how Mac Health Sci works. So obviously this isn't the room to talk about Mac Health Sci if you're interested in that, but that's just some anecdotal information. I think, you really want to, I think the question was how extracurriculars help. I would say for some of the STEM programs, they don't matter as much. I know for CS, they looked at your marks and then they looked at your Euclid scores, but I don't think they're doing that anymore. I'm pretty sure they announced that they aren't doing that anymore because of the online, because I think they canceled Euclid because of COVID. So there's no way to use that score anymore. But I think other than that, the AIF is, you do mention your ECs, but I think relatively speaking, it doesn't have too much of an impact. It's definitely nice to have. I know a lot of people that I know from high school, they did not do any ECs, and they're also in CS, they're also in math. But I would say that software engineering at Waterloo, they definitely want to see significant involvement in high school with programming. I know a lot of people, most of the people that I know, they were involved with club leadership related to CS, or they've already worked at internships, or they've won a bunch of hackathons. That's the kind of caliber of students that you see in software engineering. But for CS, CS is open to anybody, even if they have no background. Like I switched to CS in the last day that OUAC allowed you to make a decision from Western MedSci to Waterloo CS. So I came in with zero context. I took a grade 11 computer science and grade 10, but that didn't really teach me anything, and started from scratch. And I'd say that anybody can do it as long as you put your mind to it. But I think the one thing that really does help from ECs, like Sven mentioned, is the interpersonal skills, the social skills. Especially with Waterloo, I'm just going to stereotype again. A lot of people are very quiet, introverted, and nerdy. And there are some very smart people, like, International Math Olympiad gold medalists, IOI, so International Olympiads for Informatics, which is CS. Like these are all international competition winners, and first co-op they'll be working at, I know somebody in my year who I was friends with, she went to Uber ATG, which is Advanced Technologies Group. So that was Uber's self-driving branch or arm in first year, and she had a bunch of other offers from Microsoft, Google. So the caliber of people at Waterloo is pretty nuts. But I think what really makes people stand out, because everybody's so talented, is the people who have the interpersonal skills. Because that is, I think, not very common, especially when it comes to finding opportunities. Networking is very important in talking to recruiters, getting referrals from upper years. I think one misconception about Waterloo is that it might be a bit of a toxic environment. I would say that it is in some ways, but it's not so much in the sense that people are measuring, like, I got X grade in this course, or I got this internship. You're a loser for not getting a nice internship. I think nobody really compares. And I think people are very open to working with each other in courses and for the application process. Like we have Discord groups for grinding leak code. We have class Discord servers for all our courses, and everybody works together. Nobody really, it's not a rat race. People don't sabotage other people by hiding information. I hear at Western that is a little bit more prevalent. That's just how it is. So I think it is nice in that sense at Waterloo. Everybody is just kind of working on their own thing. If you ask people for help, or if you're friends with people, they won't go behind your back and do anything crazy like that.
I'd just like to add really quickly that I think personally the reason why I got into Waterloo was because of my extracurriculars, because my marks, again, for engineering, comp sci, math, that type of thing, aren't very solid. And the Euclid ran this year, I believe, but I accidentally missed the deadline for registration. So I didn't even take the Euclid, and I got into Waterloo Maths and Business. So like I had a pretty good reference. So, maybe not being like teacher's pet necessarily to that point, but at least getting on the good side of a couple of teachers. So you have a couple of solid references is a good idea. Additionally, like experience at hackathons, like the extracurriculars, it's not just about the quantity, it's also kind of like the quality and like the balance of between academic and like just fun. So for example, like robotics versus like communities that I was part of, like Because I'm a Girl, which advocates for like women's rights in like other countries type of a thing. That was kind of more of like a passion project versus robotics, which is a lot more, related to the field I'm going into. That gets a lot more experience, and it shows that you kind of take that initiative a little bit. And in terms of like work ethics, it also helps extracurriculars. It also helps you kind of like learn where your limits are and like how to juggle things at once, and like being in the decision spot, because at school you're kind of just a robot, not gonna lie. Like Canadian school system, pretty awful. You basically get told to do something, you get fed information, you spit it right back out, and you're good. With extracurriculars, you have to do stuff. You have to be a human being. But yeah, and also as a side note, I just want to make a disclaimer that I in like I was saying, with everyone has different learning styles. I like being busy and like kind of like my brain works best when I'm like overworking, because my brain works really, really fast at a speed that like makes doing mundane tasks really difficult because ADHD. So when I have a lot of things going on, it helps me like focus on important tasks. And I think the last thing was, overworking is definitely something to be careful of. Like Alan said, burnout is real. The balancing act between choosing extracurriculars and focusing on your studies versus free times. It's not like triangle. You gotta balance it. Every person, that middle point is different. So you can't just like look at someone else and be like, oh my God, they're doing like 20,000 activities. I have to do that. Some people just, the material comes to them easier. Some people, they can function on less sleep. I am not one of those people. So kind of knowing your limits on that sense. And then finally, interpersonal like marketing is not just like, of course, with university applications, it's more important for, health sciences, but with engineering, once you get into the workforce and presenting your project, presenting to your leaders, presenting to clients, that type of thing. From what my mentors have told me, who have been in engineering, it becomes very important, and it kind of distinguishes who gets like the promotions and who is favored by the company, I guess. Sorry, that was really long.
Yeah.
No, that was great. Yeah, I do think, I think, like I mentioned, I'm a little distant from the application process, especially since I applied before the pandemic started. So I think some of my information, definitely take it with a grain of salt. And I do think, Spring mentions that I think what schools are looking for now is they are looking for people who are more well-rounded, and that shows through your ECs. Because there's so many people who are equally talented in terms of marks, and then sometimes it just comes down to the ECs to differentiate the people who are robots and the people who can perform very well, but also have the social skills and can balance other things on their plate. So yeah.
Question for Spring. Since you're sort of doing like the entrepreneurship minor, how does that affect your course load? And do you have to like take extra years in order to graduate with that minor?
So with the entrepreneurship minor, I do not believe I have to take like extra years for engineering management, which is like engineering plus business basically, which is max engineering, kind of like Western's NJIV. That one you have to add on extra year because of specific courses that are like business focused. With the minor in entrepreneurship, from what I understand and from what I gathered, that doesn't tack on an extra year because like high school, university, you have your core courses and then you have your electives, right? And then at university, for my program at least, you have your technical electives, which are like engineering focused electives, and then you have to have electives in other fields. So that basically makes sure that you're well-rounded and you're not just studying. And so from what I gather, a lot of the entrepreneurship minor courses can be taken as your electives and or overlap with the management courses. But of course, I haven't gotten there yet. I'm technically going to engineering 1 co-op this year, and you get assigned a degree stream second year. So of course, it's all kind of up in the air, but this is from what I have researched.
Yep, that's great. Question from Erica, who asks, what hackathon would you recommend and how did you get into robotics?
So for hackathons, honestly, just apply to all of them. I applied to Hack the North for 2 years. I sent in my application like a second late because again, procrastination. So I didn't get in either year. I didn't apply in grade 12 because I was too lazy. But otherwise, like just like find hackathons near you. Look a couple organizations up on Instagram or LinkedIn. It can help. Like I know TO Hacks is pretty good. There's an organization, I forget what it's called, that like has a bunch of like hackathon, that organizes a bunch of hackathons, I think. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but I can try to remember it if you shoot me a message afterwards. But yeah, in terms of hackathon, that's basically it. In terms of robotics, oh yeah, just hackathons, just like go to any that you can. Talk to people, ask them what hackathons they've been to. If they have a sticker on their computer, they're pretty legit. Ask them what hackathon they got their stickers from. It's a thing in the hacker community that every single sticker you have on your computer means basically you're more experienced. And then for robotics, then I got involved. I've always kind of liked building things. In grade 8, for our science fair project, I ended up basically building a windmill that I 3D designed and printed. It didn't work particularly. It wasn't like it was a wind turbine, not a windmill, but it didn't work particularly as well as I'd hoped. But through that, I kind of learned CAD, and I got to talk to our high school design tech teacher, and he happened to also lead the robotics team. So I kind of through him also joined the robotics team. Because of that kind of connection, he kind of became one of my mentors. As well, we had a robotics team in middle school, but I didn't have the time then to join the robotics team because of other activities. I focused more on music then. But yeah, basically it was just through interest, and I wanted to get involved wherever I could. And it was like out of the activities that my school had on that certain day available, because every single activity for our school, the system is really weird. We stay after school for an hour for extra activities on Mondays and Wednesdays. And the Mondays and Wednesday activities that they had, I ended up choosing robotics because I didn't particularly want to go into sports. And the other one was Reach for the Top, which I didn't particularly have an interest in. So basically, I just wanted to do everything. And yeah, I like being busy. That's how I got involved in robotics. But a couple of my friends, they do hacking on the side. You don't really, like, I had no experience previously. Honestly, like I knew some coding, I knew some basic building stuff, but in terms of like actually like the technical stuff that you need to know, I knew none of it. And I was the only girl on a robotics team. So, you know, it was kind of an all boys space. They kind of a little bit looked down on me for that, but I didn't really mind that because I've been in STEM all my life. But yeah, basically don't be intimidated. It looks really scary from the outside, but once you get into robotics teams, there's a lot of people that aren't like the stereotypical, you know, robotics nerd that is kind of cringy and that people make fun of. There's a lot of like pretty dope people, and it's also not just toxic guys being toxic. So, you know, it's a fun time. I suggest you join it if you want.
I'm sorry to hear that, Spring, that your experience with yeah, I definitely know that there are guys out there who are very toxic, and it's not a fun time. It's just not a good environment for anyone. But yeah, on the topic of hackathons, I'm actually an organizer for Hack the North this year. I was also on the organizing team last year, and I think the organization that Spring was talking about is Major League Hacking. It's often just referred to as MLH. And yeah, MLH is sort of like the organization that sponsors all the hackathons and kind of is the one-stop shop for figuring out where hackathons and when they're happening. But yeah, if you're interested in hackathons and a list of, I guess, a rough idea of dates, feel free to reach out to me. I have a spreadsheet of that back when I was in first year applying for hackathons. But yeah, hackathons are a great way to, you know, don't be intimidated. You don't have to like actually have something delivered by the end of the weekend. I know for me, the first couple of hackathons, I think it took me maybe 2 or 3 hackathons before I could, you know, actually come up with something that could be presentable. But I think, you know, even if you show up the workshops and the mentorship and the activities and the sponsors as well, those are great resources to take advantage of, and I guess really kick off your learning and your CS pathway. So yeah, even if you have no experience, apply. And being on the organizing team of Hacks in North, I definitely can say for a fact that we love to have first-time hackers. We love to break down barriers to the field. So if you feel like you're not good enough, apply anyways. We'd love to see you out there. And yeah, if you have any questions about hackathons, or I think I do, in my network, I do know a lot of people from the other organizing teams. So if you guys want to get connected as well, you can feel free to reach out to me as well.
I'd like to add really quickly that hackathons are so much fun. I've only been to like a handful of them because coding hasn't really been my thing. It is the bane of my existence. However, just even you don't even have to do it with a group of people that you know well beforehand. You can just like put like random selection and then get sorted into a group. It's really fun either way. That like 3 a.m. prime time loopiness, so much fun. You get into so much shenanigans, and it's the best time ever. 10 out of 10 would recommend.
Yeah, it's a lot of caffeine, a lot of sleepless nights, but it's worth it. Yeah, it's also a great way to meet people as well. Yeah, like Spring mentioned, I'm actually on the backend team for Hack the North, and a project that we just delivered a couple of days ago was our team formation tool. So yeah, hackathons encourage people to come in by themselves or with a partner, and then you can match up with other people.
I know we kind of touched on this a little bit, but Erica sort of has a follow-up question. Are hackathons and robotics beginner friendly?
I'd say most are. It really depends on, of course, the hackathon you go to or the team you join, but generally, the thing to be careful with a lot of robotics teams, though, is especially if they're not organized by your school, if they're like ones they have to pay for, a lot of the times it can end up being like a couple people doing all of the work, and like a lot of the other people kind of just sitting there doing nothing. So you really got to try and take initiative and help wherever you can, see if there's a problem, lend a helping hand where you can, because then you'll get into kind of that core group of people that build things. That's what I found with robotics. Otherwise, like in terms of beginner friendly, I'd say it's relatively beginner friendly. There's a really steep learning curve at first, because there's like a lot of terminology and a lot of just general concepts that kind of come at you at the beginning. But other than that, once like if you just keep at it, if you keep working hard, if you're passionate about it, if you like building and remember your reason for joining, I'd say robotics teams can be pretty beginner friendly. Most teams have like an A and a B team though, so you'll join at the B team and then you'll level up to the A team. You can get promoted to the A team. And then for hackathons, I'd say most of them really like first-time hackers, especially Hack the North. Hack the North is like Canada's like major hackathon. There's also Pen Hacks, which I believe is also pretty beginner friendly. But overall, it like, because there's kind of a lot of like, I guess, stigma and a lot of like people who just don't want to do STEM because of that, how intimidating it looks from the outside. A lot of hackathons will have resources for people, and there's a lot of workshops too during hackathons that sometimes are required, sometimes aren't required, that will go over the basics and make sure you're prepared. And they'll go over basically everything you need to know within the hackathon. It's really helpful, I found. I didn't really hackathon, but I still did fine.
Yeah, Hack the North. Yeah, for context, this year we're taking over 3,000 hackers, so there's plenty of space for people to come on out, and we do have several tracks of workshops aimed at different levels of experience. So we have a beginner track, how to hackathon, intro to JavaScript, or intro to a lot of beginner-friendly languages and tools. But we also have stuff for more advanced people as well, intermediates as well. But yeah, we definitely do have, I guess, we love to see people exploring their interests. So yeah, don't be afraid to explore.
You can squeeze in one final question here from, sorry, I pronounced your name wrong, Helena. What are some crucial grade 11 and 12 science courses you took for applying to your program?
For engineering, take chemistry and physics, very important. I would suggest physics. Grade 11 physics is very different from grade 10 science, grade 11 science. So I would suggest either being ready to hit that steep learning curve or do some of the work beforehand, because it's a lot of math and it's a lot of conceptual thinking that you're not used to. A lot of grade 10 and grade 9 science, I found, use a lot of like metaphors, and especially in bio and stuff, it's just a lot of memorization. Physics is not that. It's thinking through things logistically, arriving at a solution. Chemistry is a pain in the butt, but you have to do it if you want to go into engineering. Bio you don't need, but it can be required for some engineering streams. Like for example, biomedical engineering. Like I know McMaster has iBiomed, Waterloo has biomedical engineering. That type of stuff, of course, you need bio there. A caveat to that is if you get into engineering first year and then you transfer into iBiomed second year, you can, if you keep up good grades, basically in university, anything is possible. I've had a couple friends transfer into iBiomed second year because they ended up preferring biomed over what they were originally going to study in engineering. So yeah, those are the science courses you need. Math, take the general calculus and functions.
Yeah, like Spring said, for CS and math programs, you definitely need your math, or sorry, your calc and your advanced functions. Those are mandatory, but I think everything else is they don't really care what you take. I know for CS, I think it was only advanced functions and calc that was required. For more details specific to programs, you should go to forget what the page was, but there's an Ontario, it might be OUAC or something like that, but they have all the requirements for all the programs, and you can just search their database, or you can go to the university and the program specific pages to see exactly what they're looking for in terms of course credits, as well as target GPA or percentage grades that they're looking for of competitive applicants. Yeah, I'd say math is pretty flexible in that sense.
Yeah, and sorry, I just wanted to add that the website is on Ontario universities or universities. I can't remember what specifically it was. There's also Ontario colleges if you do want to go into college. And the reason my friend told me that computer science doesn't require other courses other than math is because computer science isn't standardized across Canada. So the course code is different. So generally for computer science, you can basically get in with everything. You just basically, for computer science, it's kind of a guarantee that you have to have at least like one hackathon experience to have some coding experience, so that you're not brand new. But of course, if your extracurriculars are good enough, you don't need that. And also feel free to shoot me a message about any other application questions, specifics. I don't have them off the top of my head, but I can answer them if you do shoot me a message.
We have one question here from Erica. She asks, if possible, could I ask about the exchange program in Mac and Waterloo?
Yeah, the exchange program, that's something I actually have not looked into. That's something I do want to do later on once COVID is over. But yeah, there are partner universities that the University of Waterloo is partnered with in different countries. And basically what will happen is you'll apply for those university locations as well. I think they have to match, I'm not sure if they have to match your program, but you will be taking courses over there for credits. And you rank, I think, 3 of them in order of your choices. And I think they mainly just look at your GPA in terms of decisions. And then the most competitive applicants is usually who they take. And in terms of tuition, you'll be paying Waterloo tuition. You won't be paying tuition for the partner university that you'll be going to, because somebody from that university will be coming to the University of Waterloo, and you'll be paying for their tuition while they're at Waterloo, and they'll be paying for your tuition while you're at their university. There are a lot of universities to choose from. I know a lot of my friends have looked at Singapore, South Korea, Japan. I know as well as China. I know Tsinghua is one of the partner universities, as well as in Germany, in the UK, in the States. So the opportunities are pretty much endless wherever. Oh, and as well as in France, I think France, Spain, there are all opportunities there. There's also a study abroad program in math faculty for math students. But yeah, I think that has been canceled because of COVID. Yeah, hope that answers your question.
Yeah, Mac is very similar to that. There's a website that has, I can't remember what the exact URL is, but there's like a web page that has all of the partner programs listed, and some of them are like undergrad or like graduate specific. Some of them are also engineering, business, health, science specific. So you kind of have to be careful with that. I believe Mac honestly doesn't have very good engineering exchange programs. I believe they do have, like, for example, I'm considering doing an exchange year in China, and I want to go to like my hometown, which is Beijing, so like Tsinghua, Beida, those type of like the big ones. I don't believe they have many of like the big the top engineering like schools in Beijing, but in China, but they do have exchange programs that are available. I'm assuming the health sci ones are better.
Okay, I think that is all the time we have today. Thank you so much, Alan and Spring, for all of your insightful answers, and we'll meet back in the main room for closing remarks and the giveaway.
Sounds great. Thanks for hosting.
Welcome back, everyone. Unfortunately, that was all the time we had for questions in the breakout rooms. So this draws our Canadian University panel to a close. Thank you once again to our panelists for volunteering your time to speak today.
As well, we want to give a big thank you to everyone who attended the uni panel today. We hope that this gave you guys a little bit more confidence going into the university application process. And if you have friends or family who would like to view the recordings, just ask them to sign up for the university panel at bit.ly/igniteunipanel, and they will be added to our mailing list.
The recordings will be sent out within the upcoming week, along with our exclusive contact information for all of our panelists. So keep your eyes peeled for that email notification.
We'd also like to extend a huge thank you to our sponsor for the event, Cupcake Junkie, for their generous contribution. Now I would like to invite Tirka to announce the giveaway winner.
Congratulations to Aquars for winning a $25 Cupcake Junkie gift card. Please send your email in the chat to me and we'll email you with your prize. Congratulations.
Congratulations to our lucky winner. Just another reminder, please message Tirka your email address before you leave. So that is it. And that's all, folks. Goodbye and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for coming.